Welcome to the regular meeting of your Danville City Commission for tonight, December the 11th, 2017. I do believe we have quorum established. I will ask that we be led in prayer tonight by the Reverend William Jenkins, pastor of AME Church. Reverend, thanks for joining us.
Our hearts and minds are set on Jesus. Father God, we ask now that you would be in the midst of this celebration. Each day that we have an opportunity to move forward on your agenda is a day to celebrate. Now, make haste, O Lord, and give ear unto our voice and hear our cry. We ask that you would be around us like you were a wall around Jerusalem. Go ahead of us like the leading lamb that you truly are. Be beneath us like a sure-laid foundation. For, Father, your Holy Spirit, allow it to move, direct, and give instructions. We ask, God, that you would be mindful of this country, be mindful of the things that are taking place in California. We ask, O Lord, that you would continue to move in the city of Danville and the county. We ask that you would touch our commissioners and our administrators and all those that are in charge and all those who have authority over us. Now, God, give us strength, give us courage, and give us wisdom. All this we ask in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I see we have the Danville Admirals football team. Do we have the captain of the team in the midst? Coach?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you appoint one of your people to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Whoa.
Take your time, but hurry up. Come right on up here, sir.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we'll give them all one later. You passed the test. Commission, you have the agenda in front of you. If it meets with your approval, I will continue on. Very well. We're at the early part in the meeting called Hear the Public, where Mr. Atkins' phone invites you to speak on any item that is on our agenda tonight. You will have an opportunity later on in the process to speak on any item that is not on the agenda. So, does anybody like to speak on any topic that's on tonight's agenda? Going once, twice. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, that meeting being November the 27th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move for approval of the minutes of the Monday, November 27th meeting as presented.
Commissioner Cottle, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Atkins, any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is a proclamation for the Danville High School State Championship football team. And I will move down so that, Coach, if you want to assemble your troops right down here in front of us.
It's a star player right there.
I'm telling you.
That's a quarterback.
I'm a quarterback right there.
Quarterback right there.
Whereas the Danville High School Admiral football team had an outstanding year representing Danville High School in the community, the City Commission would like to congratulate them on their outstanding accomplishments in 2017. And whereas the Danville Admirals ended the regular season 10-0, won the Class 2A Regional Championship, then went on to play in the Kentucky High School State Athletic Association State 2A Football Championship game on Saturday, December the 2nd, 2017. And whereas the Danville Admirals finished their season 15-0 by winning the Kentucky State High School Athletic Association State 2A Championship, the City Commission would like to congratulate the team and coaches on their outstanding year in representation of Danville. Whereas the Danville High School football team players are outstanding role models to the youth of Danville and Boyle County, all of the members are applauded for their exemplary attitude and contributions both on and off the field. And whereas the Danville High School football team members and coaches are shining examples of focus and dedication to be the best they can be as a team, coming together to accomplish great things, they are to be commended. Now, therefore, Mayor G. Michael Paris and the City Commissioners of the City of Danville on this 11th day of December 2017 do hereby congratulate the 2017 Kentucky High School State Athletic Association 2A State Championship Danville High School Admiral football team and encourage the citizens of Danville to congratulate them on the success and representation of Danville, Kentucky. Coach, congratulations, sir. Well done. Well done. Well done, sir. Pleasure. Nicely done. You did good up there.
Coach, why don't you take the microphone and introduce these guys?
All right.
Tell us some of their accomplishments.
Give me the pins.
Well, obviously, we didn't bring all 45 guys here. The good thing about being in a small school is a lot of them are wrestling and playing basketball and having practice and games and that stuff. So we're excited about them. The young men that came and joined me tonight. To my farthest right here is Demarie Van Cleve. Demarie had obviously quite the season. If you've kept up with us at all, he was the KFCA 2A Football Player of the Year this year for the state.
Nice job. Good job.
He also participated on Sunday in the Best of the Bluegrass All-Star Game, where he led the state of Kentucky in all-purpose yards for that game and represented Danville High School well in that game as well. So he had a great year, and I expect there'll be some all-state teams and things like that coming up here in the future that he'll be a part of. Ryan Jackson, we call him Skinny. Ryan was an all-area lineman for us. Started all but one game for us. He had an injury, but did a great job for us. He's a junior, so we'll get him back. Demarie's a senior. Jalen Brashear, who's an all-area lineman last year, kind of had some injury issues at the beginning of the year, but really played well for us down the stretch. He's a junior as well. Chase Tandy, who's a senior outside linebacker for us, made a lot of big plays for us throughout the year. Probably had one of the bigger plays in the state game on the first series. He got a big sack that kind of helped set the tone for us. And then we have Miss Ralston, our principal, who does a great job of supporting us in our football program, along with all of our athletic programs and programs in general at Danville High School. So we appreciate you being here with us, Ms. Ralston. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you, City Commission, Mayor, for this honor. We were here last year. It was a little bit bittersweet being here last year. It's a lot more fun being here this year, having the big trophy. So hopefully these young men have represented Danville, and I think they have with a lot of class. And they play hard. They do things the right way on and off the field, and we're really proud of what they've been able to do. And like I said, I think a lot of them got a lot bright futures ahead of them playing football in college, and we look forward to seeing that happen as well. So thank you guys.
Keep the microphone, Coach. I think it's worth taking a minute to talk about your challenge when you first got here, and because this is your first full team, correct?
Well, it's my 5th season, so it's the first time that these guys have gone through. Second kind of class has come through just under our system.
Talk to us about what you encountered when you got here and what you've got now.
Well, I think, there was that first couple of years was a little bit tough, as far as just kind of getting a high expectation established within the program. Not that there hadn't been before, but I think it just needed a refocus. And, obviously being from here, there's some pressure coming in, about quick fixes. A lot of good things that happen don't come overnight. They take time, and these young men, I can remember they were 8th graders and 7th graders my first season. I can remember watching them play, and I realized that they had a lot of special components as far as athletic ability, size, speed, that they were going to really mold well together and have a chance to be pretty special. And then they've put in the work. We put the expectations on them, but they had to meet them to be able to get to achieve what they did this year. And it says a lot about these young men that they rose their level to accept challenges, to accept coaching, to accept failure. That's probably the biggest challenge that I've had to face coming back, is that our kids didn't know how to fail. And people hear that, and they're, it doesn't make sense, but kids today, they've been told how good they are, and they don't get a chance to fail a lot. And so therefore it makes them not, they don't know how to handle that. Mm-hmm. And with that comes undue pressure. And so when kids learn how to fail and then learn that life's going to keep on going tomorrow, we got to just get up and keep attacking, then I think they have a chance to grow. And we learned a huge lesson last year in the state championship game. And I think that helped. That loss and that experience was the reason why we were able to go 15-0 this year. We were down in 4 different games in the 4th quarter and came back to win. And I think it's because our kids knew deep down that they put in the work and put in the preparation. They had that inner confidence. And, that all comes through just working hard and preparing for the moment. And these young men did a great job of that.
That they did. If you don't mind, pass the microphone around, let each of them say oh yeah, you can handle it. Hey, anybody wearing these, you can handle that microphone. Where are you headed next?
Hopefully play college ball somewhere. I'm not sure yet, but
You'll get an offer somewhere.
yeah, hopefully.
There you go. Okay. Excellent.
What am I gonna say?
After school, then what?
You still got another year.
Yeah,
You got another year?
Yeah, I'm a junior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good.
Yes, sir.
What are you going to do starting January 8th?
We'll start 6 a.m. weightlifting.
Gonna try to trim down, aren't you?
He already done said I am.
Wait a minute. No, don't pass that.
He said he's gonna get me down to about 300 pounds. I'm gonna lose some weight. Yes, down. We're gonna push hard, push each other. I'm not gonna have the seniors there to look up to, but I'm gonna be a senior, so I got to show the younger ones what they got to do. Hopefully, we'll get back to state next year.
Good job.
I'm with him as far as, so this year, when I turned 40 in April, my goal this year was to lose 40 pounds. And so I've got 52 pounds to go. So me and him are going to be doing the same thing.
Are you a junior or you a senior?
Junior.
I'm a junior.
Junior. Okay. So you go in the weight room.
Basically, we just got to push each other to the best of our abilities and get the job done. We did learn a lot from my sophomore year. I was a sophomore. We went to the state championship. I was young. We were caught up in the hype. We thought we was just going to go in there and it was going to be a piece of cake, but we learned the hard way. So from that, we came back and we just had to finish it, and we finished.
Well done. What year?
Senior.
Okay. After graduation, then what?
Hopefully I'm blessed enough to play college ball.
Good. All right, gentlemen.
Coach Clevenger,
Yes.
I'm just trying to picture these guys at 6 a.m. It's an ugly picture in my mind.
they've adapted well. You know, it's one of those things that people told me it couldn't be done. When I came back, you know, they said 6 a.m. kids won't show up, they won't work. We had probably 8 or 10 kids that first year doing it. Last year we averaged about 26 to 28, and you know, it's just kind of a no compromise. Like, this is what we're going to do, and this is what it takes. And a lot of times, these young people, they get kind of saddled with some bad expectations, and you know, people think, well, these kids won't do this. They'll do what you expect them to do, and that's what I found out. And then they start liking it, and then that's when it gets special. You know, now if I told them they had to live at 315, they would probably boycott, because they like having 315 to go home and hang out with their friends. It's a culture. It's a culture thing, and they enjoy it. They really do. They come in. They actually have pretty good attitudes at 6 o'clock. They haven't had time to, you know, get in a fight with their girlfriend or anything at that point. So you know, they just come in and we get good work done.
Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I hope that they would tell you that I love them, whether they win or lose. But it's that's well, that's true. I mean, it's more fun when they win. But they're a great group of young men on and off the court and the field and everything else that they do. And I'm just blessed to get to work with them and the coaches every day. And I'll start crying if I talk, so they know I love them.
Can I say one more? I was telling Mr. Atkins, he said make sure you share this. So there's a thing called Max Preps and Cal Preps, and it's a nationwide where they rank all high school teams, and they take who you play, and it's a computer-based system. And so we finished this ranked 4th in the state after all was said and done, but we were the #1 ranked public school in the state. So you had Trinity was #1, Covington Catholic was #2, St. X was #3, we were #4, and Boyle was #5, which goes to show that we're playing pretty good football here in Boyle County, because we had the top 2 ranked public school teams in the state based on this national. So you know, that's a pretty special honor that we got going on this year.
And we'll be honoring Boyle County in January.
Yep.
Now, guys, I know y'all feel pretty good about things, and you're kind of proud of things, and you should be, but to bring you back down to earth.
Coach Clevenger wasn't here, but I remember when these kids, young men, was playing junior high school. That was the worst team. They were the biggest team I ever seen. And they were bigger than the high school boys, but they didn't win a game. Coach, you did a marvelous job. Would y'all give Coach a hand?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, sir. Yeah, here. Couple things.
Hey, Coach. I just want to let everybody know I'm the only one up here representing tonight for the title. I did. I'm a Boyle County graduate, but I'm representing my title town tonight, and I'll do it again when Boyle County's here. So I was listening on the radio, cheering you along with everybody else.
Anthony, you need to talk to some of these guys about the virtues of Michigan. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, Lord, there they go. Wait till they hit that cake out there.
Tell them to eat all that cake before January.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
We need a motion to accept that proclamation. Do I hear such motion?
I move to accept the proclamation representing and recognizing the admirals.
Thanks, Commissioner Atkins. How about a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Cardle. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the New Hope Food Pantry report. Ms. Murphy, glad to have you with us again. Come tell us what all the food pantry's been up to.
Oh, you won't believe it. By the way, I'm Timberlake. Been Timberlake for almost 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Make note of that, please.
Yeah.
He didn't read it.
What? What? I can't reach the microphone.
Pull it out. Pull it out.
Okay. Is that better?
Better.
Okay, the food pantry, we give away food. End of story. We buy food, we give it away to Danville, Bull County residents. Love it. The money that we got from the city, we used that about half and half between purchasing food from God's Pantry, because we get it at a huge discount from them because we buy in bulk. And the other half of the money was spent locally, whether it was Kroger had a 10 for 10 sale or eggs for 99 cents or whatever, and Save-A-Lot. So those are mainly the three places that we purchase food. There's a lot of food drives going on this time of year, which is fabulous, but when we purchase food, that's typically where we get it from. It's one of those three places, or all three, depending on what they have. God's Pantry is fabulous with the amount of food that they have that we have access to. The only problem with that is it is the same food typically, a lot of the times. So you can only do so much with 600 cases of green beans. Occasionally you need some sweet potatoes. So we have to do some other shopping, but that's typically where it goes, and that's the only place it goes is we use your all's money to purchase food with.
Any questions for Ms. Timberlake?
Just how are the numbers running from year to year? More people using the pantry? Same?
They're about the same. This year during like the garden season, our numbers fell off, which makes me happy. You know, that means that people they're going to the farmers markets, they're growing their own. I would love to see us shut the doors because there's not a need. I would love to go out of business. That'd make me happy. Our numbers typically do that in the summer and early fall. We had great weather for gardens and even late, so that's usually what happens. Now, in November, we served 370 something families and 706 individuals in the month of November. And that's actually lower than it has been in previous years. So if it's because there's not a need, I like it. If it's because they can't get to us, then that's a whole nother issue that we need to address.
Right.
So I have no way to know which one it is. So. Yeah.
And seeing some of the folks that use the food pantry, do you maybe observe that they could use some help from some other agencies and try to help them out with that?
That they could use or that they do use?
That they could use.
I would imagine all of them could use resources because we have, our population is just about in thirds, and a third of them are working folk, and they are doing everything that they can do, and they are that far under the guidelines of getting any kind of assistance. The other third are the folks that do receive assistance. The other third are the seniors who have already worked their whole lives and their income is what it is. So the need varies in our population. A lot of them that need the assistance will take it if it's available, if we have flyers that say, go here and do this. A lot of them are not going to look for it. If it's right there in front of them, they'll do it. So I think that kind of falls on us to make sure that we're at like the United Health Services meetings and that we have information available and we post it and just make sure that everybody knows what's available in the county and in the city.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Atkins has nothing? He's always the one that asks me questions.
Well, you said the numbers were going down, and you gave some explanations for it, so that's good, and I agree with you. I've always been concerned about transportation, but hopefully we're doing a better job of getting people where they need to go, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I think so too. Yep. Okay. Thank
Thank
you guys
you.
for your continued support. We appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next up is Helping Hands report. Mr. Bruce Nichols.
Well, I think the microphone's about right. Did distribute, I believe,
some reports that you all might have, and if you'd refer to that for me, I'll explain it to you briefly, as Joe Martin used to say. The top copy is simply a monthly progress report that we make every month, and that summarizes the number of referrals or claims, if you want to look at it that way. And I won't read them line by line, but you can see what we're up to in regards to working with the public. Our group, which I do have 3 of our fellow board members here with me, Philip Nichols, Arnold Marshall, and Reverend William Jenkins. We're a board of 12 that are active in your community. And we're out and about, and what we're ending up with is housing homeless people overnight at a local hotel that don't have any other place to go, and we'll get them set up for the night. From time to time, those names that are blacked out, I'm not able to share the names with you for privacy reasons. Our board knows who the folks are. Sometimes we have repeat people that need additional help, and we acknowledge that. We'll work with them. Unfortunately, did have to help bury an infant not too long ago with Steth Funeral Home. Clothing donations, KU, water bills, Atmos Energy, things like that, we participate. Nothing really unusual in this report except for the bottom line on Thanksgiving. We ended up funding 10 Thanksgiving dinners from Kroger in our area, which we fed 64 people. We thought that was good bang for the buck. And if you look at those columns, where I've got it summarized for expense for Boyle, Danville, and Mercer, when you get down to the bottom line of Danville, during the month of November, we spent $1,188. And that tabulates on page 2. That month, by the way, we helped 119 people in our local community, both Boyle and Danville. And if you turn to page 2, we won't read the numbers, but the very bottom line number of page 2 is the summary report of all the 11 months prior to. So for 11 months in the city of Danville, we have spent $8,143. You might recall you all gave us $5,000. So we have supplemented that with our own income from months prior or last year, where you did give us $7,000. That's fine. But the accounting of it, when it comes down to it, in our community for the first 11 months of this year, we've helped 292 people, whether they were in Mercer County, Boyle County, which the city of Danville is in Boyle County, so we kind of get double dipped. We don't redline where they are. But we feel like we're extending services to people that otherwise might be homeless. I don't want anybody to freeze to death in our community. And I do recall we had one Danville person that did freeze to death in Lexington a few years ago. And if we'd known about that fellow, we'd have put him up overnight. That's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Nichols? Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask just the same question that I asked Ms. Timberlake about the number of people you're serving. I would guess as the word gets out about you guys that your numbers may be going up, actually.
Well,
but
if you look at that top page on the referral side, I'm getting referrals, and these fellows are too, from Heritage Hospice, the Kiwanis Club, Parable Furniture. He called us about a fire loss not long ago. These people didn't have a place to stay, so we put them up a couple nights so they could get to a different location. Reverend Jenkins, some of the folks that he knows in the community, he's been out and about buying clothing and shoes, different times that we make sure the kids are clothed going to school or not being cold. But you look at the referrals, Donna Linton with Community Action, your water department here, hear from them weekly, you know, about somebody, whatever it may be. And the Grace Cafe, that HH is our sign on the wall at our office. They read our phone numbers and call us. But Community Action, Donna Linton is good about calling us when she has a specific need. But our frequency of use varies with weather conditions. We become busier in the wintertime than we are summertime. So this is our season right now with cold weather. So Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do. Item 5 is Planning and Zoning Audit Report Presentation. Mr. Steve Hunter.
Mayor, won't do very much on this, just maybe answer any questions you guys might have, but wasn't sure of the protocol, what the Planning Commission's role is when the audit's complete and how it goes out to the local governments. So basically, made copies for the city manager with a memo directed to you guys too, and saying the audit's finished. Just make sure you guys get a look at it. Did the same for fiscal court. Took some down to Perryville the other night. Also, again, they're a member of the Planning Commission. Just let everyone know the audit is complete. It is a clean audit. It was finished later than the Planning Commission would have liked this year, but we started a little bit behind the gun as far as getting an RFP out. It didn't start till I got here in August, but we got an RFP out, and would like to tell you guys I appreciate your staff, the city manager, our city clerk, and Michelle. They were a big help in us getting that RFP together and giving me personal guidance on how we maybe start this kind of late in the game. But we got an RFP out late in August, got an auditor on board late in September, and didn't get the audit to the end of November and approved at the Planning Commission here in December. Hopefully next year we can get this done a lot earlier. It'd be better if we could get this done first quarter by Halloween at the latest. But we did do something different this year. The Budget Committee took a more active role, and when the audit draft came to the Planning Commission, the entire Budget Committee and myself sat down with the auditor for 2 hours, went to the office, and we had more detailed notes, and just to make sure we understood what was in the audit. The auditor indicated that hadn't happened in years prior. I think the Budget Committee enjoyed that, and we just asked a lot of questions about our own audit and had a few notes that we questioned, and one of those notes was actually revised based on kind of some clarification, so I think it was helpful. Then we got a final draft and sent it out to you guys. So clearly the thing that interests a lot of folks is carryover, and you can see our carryover number is in the audit, pretty decent number. Without getting any real specifics, let you guys answer questions, I can tell you we budgeted a much lower number for the carryover based on whatever anticipated forecasting was done before I got here. So the actual June 30th carryover is about $17,000 more than was budgeted. So there's going to be a need for us to do a budget amendment here pretty soon to kind of reprogram that money. But again, everything looked pretty good. And again, the auditor said it's a clean audit. All the notes are pretty much in line for a small agency audit. Everything's done except for us paying them at this point. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you guys might have about the audit. Again, it's looked pretty straightforward, and Don indicated the protocol was to put it on the agenda and be here if you guys had any questions to ask. All right.
Any questions?
There's a couple of things they list as some weaknesses, but that's more just due to the size of the agency. The way I read it, it's just
correct.
You don't have the expertise in those fields on staff.
Yep, that's exactly right. There were a couple material weaknesses, they call them, nothing critical. Some were segregation of duties for a small office where we just have really 3 staff. He said that's probably going to be a note we see every year. But there was a lot of discussion about that in that small committee on how we could achieve some things as far as who's doing what in the office and how we can assure that we are trying to do that, and at least to the auditor's satisfaction. So it's a good give and take with our auditor, which I think was good. Again, just as opposed to getting a document and sending it out to sit down with and talk about every page of the audit. We spent a bunch on that pension analysis. It's now a requirement. That actually inflated our costs a little bit. What the auditor said, now it's a requirement, and that's why the audit went up, and him explaining exactly what that is and how that's calculated and why we have to do it as a small agency and why we shouldn't be that concerned about it, because it's more of a statewide shot. So we all were very interested in those pages in the audit. There's also a new note on one of the pages on our letters of credit and the cash that we hold in a separate account for outstanding construction projects. That was never in the audit. That's now in there. I think it's note 8 or 9, I believe. And it basically shows what our cash on hand are, the letters of credit that we have cashed over the years. Again, unfinished subdivision projects, and even a note on the current letters of credit that we hold. Even though they're not cash, they could be converted to cash sometime this year. So again, just shows the whole financial responsibility the Planning Commission has beyond just the general fund money we hold. Those other letters of credit we're holding in a separate checking account for unfinished subdivisions.
Any other questions? Seeing not, we'll move right on to the next topic.
We have to, action needed on this one?
I don't believe so. Is there action needed?
It says.
No?
No.
Okay. Item 6 is a zone change approval. Mr. Hunter, you still have the microphone, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, not sure exactly what role you want me to play on this. I see there's a first reading on the agenda, and obviously I was at the December 6th Planning Commission meeting when we had a fairly lengthy discussion about a zone change at 4300 Lebanon Road. I guess I'm here to summarize that hearing for you guys and answer any questions you might have. Hopefully you got a pretty detailed packet that went out to you. We prepared a staff report, maps, other stuff. Is a pretty decent report. In addition, the Planning Commission then approved their minutes today in a special called meeting, and our attorney prepared findings of fact over the weekend and got those to your attorney. So you should have all of those items. There were some other things introduced on the floor of the Planning Commission during the hearing, and you should have those too. But in general, I'll just summarize. Again, we had a zone change request for 142 acres on Lebanon Road. The applicant was the Bull County Industrial Foundation. They were going from agriculture basically to IBD, or what we know as Industrial Business Development District. And again, I think most of y'all know the proposed use was for a distillery that potentially is coming to our community. Interesting thing, if you looked at the staff report, the challenges that the Planning Commission have are how they make their findings. A lot of discussion about the future land use map and its guidance on how we make approvals. However, there was a lot of other things in the comprehensive plan that also gave the Planning Commission guidance on how they are to evaluate a case like that. Specific goals, objectives, action items, principles, lots of things in the comprehensive plan that were put in the staff report to show the Planning Commission that there's a lot of things you look at in addition to the future land use map, but ultimately they have to find that this project was in compliance with our comprehensive plan, which they did, even though this specific project was not in compliance with the future land use map or the urban service boundary. So that was an interesting challenge at the hearing. A lot of debate about that a little bit, but then at some point the hearing turned, got a little more micro in nature about access and the facility and how it would function on this roadway that clearly has some challenges. And there was a lot of discussion about that, some additional conditions that were laid out for the applicant. And then even some additional information. There were some neighbors in opposition, some folks for, and we started talking about other things related to incidental effects of distilleries in your community as far as it relates to mold or other things. So a lot of stuff was brought into the hearing. The Planning Commission had to talk about a lot of stuff. I think we're there 2.5, 3 hours, something of that nature. And at the end of that, there were 9 members present, motion to approve, second, and they sent you a recommendation to approve 142 acres to be zoned IBD. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you guys. I thought the paper did an excellent job on their write-up and summarized it pretty good. Even turned it into 2 articles, so must have been a big hearing. We had the room pretty full, so it was a good hearing. We had other cases that day too, but this obviously dominated the afternoon. And again, I'm glad to answer any questions about what the Planning Commission did or those additional conditions or anything in your packet that you might have.
Questions?
Or Mr. Dexter can jump in here with me too. There's a lot of findings that went with this too.
Yeah, Steve, thank you for your version or abbreviated version of the actual hearing itself. What's typical is that you give a report very similar to what you just gave, and the commission is now faced with planning and zoning's affirmative recommendation to accept the zone change as presented. The commission is left with a couple of options. One, approve the recommendation, adopt the findings of fact. Reject it, make your own based on the findings of fact and come to a different conclusion, or reject it, come up with your own findings of fact through a new hearing. We've talked about that process before. So based on the packet of information and the information presented tonight, you could entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of planning and zoning and the zone change that was presented, or come to a different conclusion if you so choose. I will say, Mr. Hunter, everything in the packet is precisely what the commission would typically have. The only thing that we've had in the past would have been the larger actual zone change maps and a conceptual plan. But I think the record is clearly indicative of what's going on there. But just in the future, sometimes the commission prefers to look at the big maps, even though it wouldn't be a normal requirement. It's just kind of been the historical practice of what we've done. I'm happy to entertain any questions or motion can be made.
Which brings us to item 7.
Do we need to approve this and then 7, or
What
just
we've done-
7?
Or is this is 7?
Typically, we're kind of morphing these two together. Our normal chain of events would be for the planning commission to make their recommendation, and you give a tentative affirmance of the recommendation, and then I would present an ordinance in accordance with that. However, in light of the proposed economic development project and the request for which speed was a need, the Planning Commission, to accommodate that request, had a second meeting today, special call, to approve their minutes and finalize their record, and with an expectation that you may wish to proceed tonight in order to aid that economic development project, I have prepared an ordinance if you choose to approve the recommendation of planning and zoning and the zone change present.
And that's number 7 in the packet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to make a motion. You can direct me, Mr. City Attorney.
You're correct.
And my motion would be to approve the zone change and also the first reading of Ordinance 1909, which is again the Lebanon Road zone change.
We have a motion by Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Terry. Discussion?
I have no discussion, just a quick question. Can you, I think it was explained really well here about some concerns of the neighbors on the mold thing. You want to talk about that just for a second?
It caught me off guard a little bit. One of the neighbors sent me an email and raised that issue about distilleries in general, and again, footnoted that email pretty well on some different sources, and seemed to indicate that where we have distilleries, we have a mold or black fungus problem, and referenced Shively and some other places. Again, I think that email's in your packet along with some handouts. As far as the way it went into the hearing, there was a lot of discussion about that topic. However, the Economic Development Partnership attorney got up and basically gave their side of that, to say those cases had been dismissed, without really saying there wasn't a validity to them, but basically said, look, it's still kind of not, the science is out on that, so there's a little bit of back and forth. Planning Commission didn't go too far into that. Kind of goes a little bit outside of their realm when you look at the guidance they had from the comprehensive plan as far as straight land use style development, as far as that issue. So that I think they heard the testimony, let folks talk about it a little bit, but ultimately when they made their finding, it was mostly based on the comprehensive plan, the goals, objectives, the guidance for land use. But again, we didn't talk too detailed about that, other than one side said it happens, and another side said, well, those cases were dismissed, and it kind of went that route. And again, not sure what else I can say about it, because I was just
That's fine. I think it was explained real well, but I want to kind of hear what you had to say.
And I don't know, I can't remember if that might have went on 15 or 20 minutes in the hearing of something of that nature. Again, it was we spent a lot more time talking about access, talking about the flume, but again, a neighbor raised that issue and introduced some exhibits and some photos. I think they're in your packet. Those were introduced, and the Planning Commission just passed them down the line, looked at them, and I don't think there was a whole lot of questions back and forth related to those photos.
All right.
So I just wanted to clarify, this is a 2-phase project, correct?
Yeah, that was brought out in the hearing too, and Mr. Dexter mentioned the big plans and drawings. That was an interesting challenge. What was submitted was a concept plan for the whole 142 acres, showing a distillery, a presentation center, access, and 17 rick houses. It was indicated at the meeting when we started talking about traffic and access that phase 1 is really just The 42 acres, the presentation center, 3 rick houses are what potentially would start the development. The future phase would be the back 100 acres, the additional rick houses and the distillery, as we talked about truck traffic and access and what's going where on the property. An interesting twist in the hearing, I think, though, was it seemed to appear that, hey, the first phase is fairly small, there won't be a lot of impact, but yet then tourism was talked about and that impact. So unlike a lot of projects where it's just truck traffic and employees, we all agreed that this is going to generate tourism and trips, and access just was the focus of the meeting, talking about that driveway, that hillside, and how we can do a better job in site planning. The best part of this, and I think we ended the hearing with that, was Planning Commission gets to do a site plan approval down the road if this is approved. And that's really the appropriate place to sort of drill down on all these issues related to drainage, parking, lighting, signage, whatnot. So we spent the majority of the hearing talking about access and that driveway and what we could do best to assure safety and quality access for the facility. But it would be a 2-phase project, as was indicated to us from the economic development folks.
Well, it was a long meeting, but I commend you and the staff and the zoning commission for allowing all of the input from the commissioners as well as from the public. And it was a well-orchestrated meeting, and everyone had their chance to have the input. I thought the agreements that the developers agreed to, the stipulations to the total plan, were all received very well. And it is a good move for that part of our county, our city and our county. So it was a real well-orchestrated meeting. And again, thanks for allowing the public input for and against this approval.
Again, being fairly new to the community, I was pretty proud of my planning commission. I thought,
Yeah, sure.
I agree, that was a tough hearing. There's a lot of folks in the room. They were very focused, and they asked a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And asked everybody questions and let everybody speak. And I thought, deliberated well after the hearing was closed, added conditions. And again, in an attempt to get the best project we could get on the ground and address all the primary issues. I thought they did a great job too. And they were a little stressed out about it going into the hearing again.
Sure.
They all drove out there.
And please take.
And saw that hill, and it bothered them. But I think at the end of the day, I think we feel like we got a good project in great conditions to assure that we can move forward on this and get it even better at the site plan approval.
And please take back to them that our presence there was just to seek information and knowledge and to hear input from the community. We did not intend to add to their stress.
The room was so full, I'm not sure they saw you guys
Oh,
hiding
they-
back here.
Well, they did.
They saw
Until the
us.
mayor got up and spoke with it. I think they knew the mayor was in the room. But it was a full house. I was impressed too.
That's why I was there. I like, when there's something like this,
Sure,
I
that's
like
right.
to come and
Yeah.
hear it firsthand.
Yeah.
And we were not there to try to intimidate or stress
You guys did a great
anyone.
job.
So
good.
we just like to hear it firsthand.
Any further comments?
I'd like to say I echo Commissioner Atkins, what he said about taking the time, and you guys really looked it over. And I think Commissioner Terry and myself just wanted to hear again a couple of the resistance to this. I think everything is real positive on this project, but certainly there's things that have to be considered. And for them to take the time to consider that deserves a pat on the back.
And I'll say one of the neighbors that came out, again, they all spoke, but a couple of them were nervous and called ahead of time.
Sure.
How does this
Yeah.
work? Am I
Yeah.
allowed to speak? When do we talk? How do we ask questions? And you wouldn't have known it if you saw them there, but so I was glad to see neighbors come out for or against,
That's right.
and everybody spoke. And I think even afterwards, some of them were telling the planning commissioners, thank you, appreciate it, even though maybe it didn't go their way. So again, I thought it was a good hearing all the way around.
It was.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor of the motion? What? Oh,
Got
we
the
have,
roll call?
we have a roll call, yes, thank you.
You want me to read it or just wait? Okay. This is the first reading of ordinance 1909, an ordinance changing the zone from AR1 agricultural residential to IBD industrial business development for 142.318 acres, more or less, of real property owned by Boyle County Industrial Foundation Incorporated, located at 4300 Lebanon Road in Danville, Kentucky. Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris.
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle.
Yes.
Commissioner Sayers.
Yes.
Item 8 is Resolution 2017-12-11-01. This is the cancellation of the second meeting in December. Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of Resolution 2017-12-11-01.
Is there a second?
Fa
Second.
la 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 la.
Second. Y'all can come on the 25th if you want to. We won't be here.
Oh, come on.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Dewey, Dewey.
Opposed, like sign. Item 9 is Resolution 2017.
And Mayor, if I may, I want to remind you that previous resolution does authorize the city to pay its outstanding bills that would typically be paid at that second meeting, and you'll approve them. They'll be spent in accordance with the budget and approved in January, just as a FYI.
Thank you, sir. Item 9 is Resolution 2017-12-11-01, 02. This is the Parks and Recreation Ad Hoc Committee. Mr. Scott?
This resolution, which will also be considered and by the Boyle County Fiscal Court, would be to reestablish our Parks and Recreation Ad Hoc Committee, Advisory Committee that was created in 2016. That committee worked in 16 and 17, last meeting in October of 2017, to develop recommendations for additional improvements in our park system, primarily Millennium Park. We made a lot of improvements in terms of capital improvements during that almost 2 years of meeting activity. This resolution would continue that existing body and have them meet from January through June 30th, 2018, primarily because we will have our final recommendations from the master planning of our parks and recreation study to consider, and we believe a continued thoughtful deliberation of the city and the county would aid in the consideration of that report.
I'll move to accept Resolution 2017-12-11-02.
Thanks, Commissioner Sears. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Cottle. Discussion.
Yeah, can we talk about the possibility of a friendly amendment to this and extend the term of the ad hoc committee to the 31st of December 2018, which is the last official day of our term? I give them a year, give them several months after they receive the final plan to do some work for us. Just a friendly amendment.
I don't.
So you want to move it out 12 months rather than 6? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, give them plenty of time, yeah.
Is there a reason that that we were going 6?
I think our practice had been that we extended it once or twice already. We thought we could accomplish a lot in a short period of time, and we did, but there was more to do. We were thinking that if we need to extend it at a later time, we could, rather than creating the obligation to meet. The job occupies the time allotted to it by Peter Drucker Management Study. So we thought we might just do it for 6 months. If we really needed a longer period of time, which we may, we would come back and extend it at that time. But we could do it now. But the county is on this plan of 6 months. So
Sure, I understand that, yeah.
My read of the minutes may have been inaccurate, but I believe it was the committee itself that requested a 6-month extension with the hopes of accomplishing the work to be done during that time period. So that was where the 6-month came from. I think it was a joint request of the members of the ad hoc committee.
Seeing how that amendment was not officially accepted unless the person who made the motion would be willing to do so.
I didn't make the motion, no, I made the amendment.
Yeah, he made an amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, who made the
Just
motion?
extend the length of it, that's all.
Again, so you want them carried out 12. I'm just kind of curious. It could be renewed again. I'm okay with your suggestion, but we're going to have to get Boyle County to, so it's just going to lengthen out this process to get to that point.
Yeah, my thing was that there's really no rhyme or reason for it. It's just that that's the end of our term, and then it's our ad hoc committee, city and fiscal court, but how many times have they been back to ask for an extension? This will be the last one.
Twice.
we do it till the end of our term, it'll be the last one.
Well, and I think also what you're saying is,
No rush.
when do we get the master plan report?
Yeah.
And how much time will they actually have to work with it? Is that
Yeah.
what
that
you're
would be my-
asking?
Yeah.
Not certain, probably into January or February, the master plan report.
Mr. Atkins, if it pleases you, if we could just hold off on that amendment, go with the 6 months. I think we're all in agreement that if we need longer at the end of this 6-month period, then we'll go with that.
That's okay. Yeah,
Okay.
my thing is that it was just a generous offer. Okay? They're
Yes, sir.
volunteers. They're not getting paid any extra, but they keep coming back and asking for more time, so
Yeah.
I can only give them time till the 31st of December, 2018, that's all. So I'm okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item 10 is the code enforcement report. Ms. Lester?
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. For the month of November, we had 159 inspections, complaints, activities going on. Had lots of good things going on in November. We issued 129 parking citations, issued 30 business licenses, we recovered 7 liens. We collected 4 of our $100 citations on 4 different properties for mowing. We had 4 different court appearances on properties. We had this old Sutton's Western Sizzling business was demolished by the property owner. That's been cleaned up.
That was amazing.
And
No cost to the city.
no cost to the
That's what I
city.
was gonna ask.
No
Property,
cost to the
yeah,
city.
the property owner had it.
complied.
Yep.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, we were very excited about that.
Hate to see it come down, but, man.
Bridget, I'll give compliment to the codes and probably to my fellow commissioners for backing you all. We've gotten some compliments about the work that you're doing, and especially with Sutton's being leveled. People are starting to see that as an eyesore. It's one of our entrances to our city, and so I think it shows that we're trying to progress things a little bit and make that property more available.
Yes, and we're excited to see our condemned properties list is dwindling little by little as well. So some exciting things happening.
And even though I found out it's kind of minor, because the business license is only about $25, we always see about 30 every month. So people are doing business in our town,
That's
no
right.
matter how small.
That's right. We have a lot of projects going on in town too. So subcontractors, contractors with different things coming through. So we're getting a lot of licenses from that as well.
You gave a number out about, I guess, parking violations?
129.
129?
Mm-hmm.
That's mainly in downtown Danville?
Mm-hmm.
I got 3 of those.
Wow. You got 3 of them. And you actually collecting, people are paying fines.
Here's a mirror that gives back.
Oh, yeah.
Will that
$30
go
a
up during
crack.
the shopping season? Man. Seems like a crazy
It's a
number.
challenge. It's a challenge because you have to control the behavior of what's going on.
But every place is 2 hours free. These are folks who are staying in the same spot longer than 2 hours.
Yes. It's also violations for parking in permit lots, parking in handicap spaces without a permit.
Well, yeah, but, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, those are the $100, right? But, wow, that's
So-
good for you.
Anything else for Ms. Lester?
No, it was a good report, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
As always.
Nice job. Item 11 is the city manager report. Mr. Scott?
Yes, sir. Two items. First, very briefly, I would request that we, as in light of the fact that we've canceled our second regular meeting of the month, which would occur on December 25th, that the commission agree to hold a meeting perhaps on December the 29th. December 28th, which I think is a Thursday. Or maybe I need to check that date. Thursday of that week, which I think is 28th. The 28th, for the sole purpose of giving the second reading to the zoning ordinance that you have given first reading to tonight. Should there be any other business that needs to come before the commission at special meeting, we would give proper notice as we do with all special called meetings. But this should be a very brief meeting on that date, and it would be at a time that's convenient to you. I don't know when that might be. We might consider 9 o'clock in the morning as one time that I've had some conversation with a couple of commissioners about.
9 work?
I can do 9.
Morning.
I can do 9 or noon or
Not that it's
4.
critical that I be here, but I will not be here.
That's all the more
Just
reason to
so-
have it. I'm
So
sorry.
don't put anything else on that agenda, is what I'm saying.
How about a little earlier? We do it like 8:30 or something, is that not good? Don't you get up by then, Jade, or what?
I can do that.
That's my first day back to work.
8:30?
Yes, we can do 8:30.
I could do 9, but it just gives me that the rest of the day if I do it earlier, that's all.
Rick, I'd
No,
voted
it's
for noon time, but I got overshadowed. But
All right, y'all, 8:30 and 9, somebody
It's not going to
choose.
take that long.
Mr. Mayor, Commission,
Yes, sir.
one other thought that our able counsel always thinking, and particularly because he wants to be present, was the fact that we could possibly hold it sooner than that time if we're only going to deal with one topic, that being the rezoning.
And if we're the last hurdle in the project,
Okay.
for it to be done and be effective, we'd like to get it published.
What's your proposal?
Well,
Propose a
I'm-
date.
I
Like
would-
later this week? Is that what you're
I would
proposing?
Why not?
I would suggest maybe Friday morning at 8:30 or 9 o'clock.
Let me check.
this Friday?
Yep.
Um,
Friday morning, 9 o'clock?
Going once.
Can we do 8:30? 8:45, 9?
Even better.
Well, as long as you have quorum, I mean,
We want you.
Friday morning, 8:30?
Yeah, as long as if you could,
you
Oh,
can
we
do
need
9
quorum.
if we, you can do 9 if you really want to, but
Friday morning, 9 o'clock.
That's the what, 15th?
9?
Yes,
Okay.
that's on the 15th.
that's better than the 28th.
I can't do that. No, just kidding.
Don't you come up with that. Okay, what else, sir?
What time did we agree to?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, Friday. Okay.
City Hall be open that early?
It will be, yes, sir.
Oh.
One thing that I want to take a few minutes to do was simply to inform the public, the city commission. I think many of the public may be aware of this, but the city government is publishing a newsletter quarterly, and our winter issue will be coming out here, if not already, in the mailboxes of our citizens and customers. It should be received in the next few days. That has a number of current topics that are discussed briefly or in some cases in greater depth. But as we close out essentially 2017, I want to just highlight one article in that newsletter which talks about our accomplishments during 2017. We may not often pause long enough or communicate in enough depth with our citizens to say, really, what have we done well during the last year? What have we have accomplished? And so this newsletter, and please look for it, does have those brief summaries of those accomplishments. I would be remiss if I did not begin this report by saying we have a great staff. They are dedicated. They've done a great job. You have been also great in terms of hiring qualified contractors to perform work when the city staff does not do the work. And our first major accomplishment, of course, was our dedication of our new City of Danville water treatment plant in August of this year that serves 6 counties through direct or emergency service, can serve up to 90,000 people in providing safe drinking water. It generates 12 million gallons of treated water a day, and it's a key to our quality of life for everyone individually and our industry and businesses in terms of an economic generator. So that's a significant accomplishment. Part of that was also the final design of our playground that's going to be constructed at the front of that treatment facility, and that we expect to do that this summer. We did receive a $25,000 grant to aid us in that process from KU. So we appreciate that contribution towards that as well. That's a very popular park that was well used by neighborhoods and neighborhood residents and people of Danville, and they've asked when it will be back in place. And this is going to be a much improved version that will have a interactive educational water feature there that will also be fun and interactive and educational for our residents. So that's the first one I would just highlight briefly. Second one is our Whisker Park Plaza. You know, our completion of that under budget this year. It's increasingly being used. We had it in use Monday of last week for our Title Town celebration. It was packed, and people are enjoying that. We still have a little tweaking to do with regard to the colored lights that will highlight the water feature, but that is a significant improvement on that corner, and it's one that our city residents are meeting at increasingly and enjoying. We have tonight on the agenda yet a discussion of our energy efficiency improvement projects. You will recall that we spent over 2 years planning for this and a lot of review, issued bonds to do an $8 million improvement to our various facilities that use a lot of energy with a guaranteed savings of replacing those outdated utilities with more efficient pumps and lights, et cetera, and it's guaranteed to save us money over the lifetime of that replacement. So we're excited to begin that. We'll talk a little bit more about our remote read water treatment, or remote read meter installation process here in just a little bit, but that's a big project that will be beneficial to everyone in the community. I will highlight again our city leasing program the City Commission implemented back in July of this year, saving, instead of purchasing capital equipment for all our passenger vehicles, we entered into a leasing arrangement with that, with the pro forma showing that we save $50,000 a year by doing that, or $500,000 over the 10-year agreement of that leasing program, which again, if we had a change of heart or good science to justify it, we could cancel that at any time during that 10-year period. We mentioned last meeting the implementation of OpenGov, which is our effort to make our city finances more transparent to our community. We're one of the very few cities in Kentucky that have done that, although it is increasingly being implemented across the nation. It gives remote access to our budget and expenditures that citizens can search and see how we're spending tax money and how we're generating tax money. So it's an effort at transparency, and I think that'll be a used feature as we get more data loaded into that going forward. We've talked about the master park planning update. That's well underway. Probably have a report on that in late January or February. It's been over 30 years since we had a look at what facilities are needed to meet current and future recreational needs of our community, and I think that's very forward thinking of the commissioners to, again, engage in that process. We've talked about the studies of our Main Street Fire Station and the conclusion by several engineering firms that it was more economical to reconstruct a new facility rather than try to meet code requirements with that existing and outdated facility. And we're still in the engineering phase, design phase of that new fire station. We do anticipate issuing bonds sometime probably in the first quarter, I'd say maybe March of next 2018, to size the bond issue to meet the design requirements to build a new fire station downtown beginning in 2018. We've talked a lot in the city and the county and in our community about our need to update and modernize our 911 equipment, and we are well into the way of accomplishing that. Our total cost for updating that equipment is probably going to be less than $500,000, probably around $400,000 and change, to upgrade to the next generation of equipment, which, when approved by the state, will allow a greater service to our deaf community, so that we'll be able to receive both text and video calls for assistance, as well as the regular voice transmissions. We're also relocating that. You know, it used to be before they moved out to the present location on 4th Street on the hill out there by our water tower. They were in the fire station downtown. We're returning to a downtown location and having our basement of City Hall retrofitted to accommodate that move. Two other things really, or maybe a couple or three, just continuing the essential services that we provide is no small feat in itself in these days of greater regulation, staffing challenges in terms of retaining and keeping and having qualified staff to provide all those services. And I think we've done a great job this past year in terms of delivering services to our customers, our citizens. We talk a lot about economic development. The city was a leader in that over the past 2 years in terms of reorganizing that EDP effort. And we stepped up the funding in a couple of years to make that study possible, as well as the funding operationally this last year. We've got the new board seated in, I think it was October of this year. And we're interviewing increasingly, I think, prospects to grow the economy locally, and I think the city should be commended for their role in that. We have work to do ahead, but I think we should be recognized really for our efforts to make that a better process, and I think we do have a better process. And then finally, but not least, we thought we would have this underway before the end of the year, but that's our waterline improvements to the industrial park and to the water lines out to Perryville, and the standpipe to be constructed out there. You have on your agenda tonight an easement to make that possible. And that's a $2 million project that we will begin work on, or let the bid on probably in January. So that's not quite an accomplishment in 2017, but it required substantial grant planning, grant application, and we received almost $1 million grant to make that possible, supplemented by our funds. So it's been I think a good year, a great year, very productive year, and we appreciate your leadership role in making that possible.
Any questions or comments?
We appreciate yours as well.
Commission, if we could, like your thoughts on moving item number 16, being the water meter replacement guide, up to the next item before we go to hear the public, so that our guests might wrap up their evening and commence with their travel back home.
So you might make it to cantata rehearsal practice.
I'm for making them wait, but that's okay.
With that approval, Commissioner Connell, we will we'll move item 16 up to item 12, if you will. Gentlemen, floor is yours.
Yeah, his wife is the choir director, so she will appreciate that.
More importantly, mother-in-law.
Yeah, my mother-in-law's on the organ, so she's playing. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you this evening, and thanks to the entire team, both, of course, the commission and the city staff, as we've moved through the implementation of this project, and appreciate the point that Ron already mentioned in his report, that the project is underway and doing quite well. Steve Duff is the project manager for those of you who I did not get a chance to introduce you to, and he is spending certainly a lot of time here in the building and in the city working on implementing the aspects of the project. So I wanted to just kind of talk with you briefly about a very important piece that we think is part of the project. Of course, maybe the main portion of the project in terms of costs, certainly, and that is the replacement of the water meters. Much of the work has already been done and underway under improving the building facilities, lighting, the park, the things that we're doing at the park as well. But we are starting in earnest to begin the work on replacing of water meters. And again, as you might recall, with this project, we're focusing on putting in an advanced meter infrastructure project, and the infrastructure will allow the city to be able to get essentially real-time information on water usage and consumption. So it provides for a very good opportunity to give greater customer service, as well as leak detection and so forth. So it definitely helps the customers in that way. But it is a more efficient way of course, gathering information by way of water usage in the city. So there are several documents I have in front of you. I placed them there in front of each one of you. I want to put your attention on the document dated November 17th. That is the communication plan letter that we shared with Mr. Scott.
And really, it comes as sitting down with the city staff and figuring out what are the different ways that we want to communicate to the general public the status and the stages of this project and this particular portion of implementation. And so I won't read all of this to you, of course, but wanted to make sure that you did see this document and can talk you through some of it. Ron already mentioned the newsletter. I think there's actually a small blurb in the newsletter that is going out this week. And as you note, that is the first bullet to talk about communicating to the customers the infrastructure changes, and that, of course, is the customer newsletter. We're also doing work on the Facebook page. I think Ashley has already made an update, and something has been posted as of Friday. Was that right, Donna? And so information is on the city's Facebook page as well. It also gives, I think, the frequently asked questions on that page, and that will be an important piece for people to refer to, because with these types of projects, many of the same kinds of questions occur, and it's good for the general public to be equally knowledgeable about the various issues that you deal with on most of these projects, and that's what the frequently asked questions is meant to address. There is a door hanger that I placed in front of each one of your spaces, and you might actually start seeing that tomorrow, as a matter of fact. We are doing a small pilot project, as the article talks about in the newsletter, of replacing about 150 meters, mostly because we want to test the system, make sure that we got good communication from the station that's going to take the reads in on an electronic basis, but also to make sure that we've got all the system talking to each other before we do full deployment in January. So as individuals start seeing this take place in their homes, you will see this door hanger, which will indicate what was actually done at that particular visit. In some cases, we'll be able to change the meter as intended, but there are also a couple of cases where we will not be able to, and we'll indicate what those reasons were, and you communicate back with the city to get it rescheduled, okay? There will be a news release that we will be putting together. I know the media is here today, but we will also do a news release that will be specifically addressed for the media to be put out to the community. And we'll be working on that for the latter part of this month. I'm going to be getting with Taylor and, of course, the city staff to approve the news release before we put it out to the media, but that will be happening later this month. And as always, you have to have a presence on the web, and so we have information on the website, and we'll be working with the IT department to make sure that we're keeping information updated on that website. The second page of that document gives you kind of the deliverables that we've talked about in this communication plan. So I won't read every one of these to you. I've kind of hit the broad highlights on each one of these already. I just want to make sure there was nothing else I needed to emphasize. So feel free to review that document, and if you have any questions or concerns, certainly feel free to share them with me, and we will get those addressed. But the main intent, of course, is to give you the roadmap that we're placing out in front of you to make sure that the community is well informed of what's going on. And we do try to make sure that as we replace meters via book, so we're doing it by billing books, and we're trying to make sure that we don't disrupt the billing process in the process of changing meters. And we send that information out at least a week in advance of doing the replacement in that area. Any questions on that piece so far?
Just for the general knowledge, how many meters does Danville have? How many are you going to replace?
Yes, great question. So Danville has approximately 10,500 meters, but there are certain areas that we will not be touching in the project. The ones we are replacing most of the meters inside the city of Danville proper. So Perryville and Junction City will not be addressed by us in this project. So we'll be looking to do about 8,500 meters.
If I may offer one point of clarification, Anthony has done a good job with communication, as he usually does, but would like to say that when we talk about billing books and changing the meters out per billing book, what that will mean to the person on the street is that if their street is, for example, the northernmost boundary of a book, their neighbor behind their house, for example, may be on an adjoining street, right, a different street, or not adjoining, but a different street in the same subdivision, depends on how the books are oriented. So their meter may be changed, and the person that lives behind them may not be for a couple of months. the book may be in a southerly direction from their street, right? And so what he's saying is that the books then, by going by book, it's going to hopscotch a little bit based on when those books will be billed, so that it's easier to integrate the billing with the transition. And so again, you'll have that question pop up where neighbor A didn't get their meter changed this month, meter B did, doesn't make sense to them. Well, that's why.
Yeah.
It's because we're going through the books, not necessarily per street or per address.
Correct. Excellent clarification.
Right.
What's the estimated time frame that all the meters will be changed?
It's a great question, and that's one of the ones that we certainly talk about in our communication plan as well as a frequently asked question. We think that the project should take about 8 months to complete. Again, we're starting January 8th is when we really kind of go full bore throughout the city. I think it's meter book 7 that we're actually starting with. So, but we've got a schedule identified on which books we're going to replace and when, and how long it should take to do each one.
Anthony, you might talk about the team of specialized people that are going to be doing that work.
Absolutely. So the other document I have before you is the frequently asked questions. On the second page, you will see the logo for our partner that is helping us to implement the change out of the meters, Utility Metering Solutions, and you'll see the UMS logo that will be on their vehicles. They will be identified by that, so you will know that if it's those gentlemen with a yellowish green, either jacket or vest, construction-related vest, that they are actually working for the city to do the project. Great, thank you.
Have you worked with them before?
Absolutely. They've done every one of our projects
Okay.
to this point, done a great job. I think that's all I have at this point, unless there are any other questions. I want to again make sure that you all knew that this was starting in earnest tomorrow. I think we've gotten good. I know we're underway at least in getting the communications established on the tower by which we're going to be receiving data. I believe that that's all finalized. It certainly will be tomorrow. If not, if it isn't quite finished tomorrow, we'll start the next day. But think of it starting in earnest tomorrow for about 150 meters on the pilot.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right.
Be careful going home.
Yeah. I might make some of it. Yeah, thank you.
Bass or baritone?
I actually like to sing bass. I am a baritone. My wife makes me sing tenor a lot.
But he does sing, guys.
We're in that section of the agenda called Hear the Public. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience that would like to address the commission on any subject that is not on the agenda. The gentleman in the back was first, Jane. Unless he chooses to yield to you.
What's that?
Ernie Moore. Last meeting, I complained about my leaves not being picked up, and Earl said he would look into that situation. He must have gotten up very early Tuesday morning because I was still eating breakfast and they were already out there cleaning up the leaves. But it took them, and granted, I live on a cul-de-sac and it's a short street, but it took them about 10, 12 minutes to clean up the whole street. I appreciate that, Earl. We got them done. But part of the problem, and the supervisor called me and talked with me about it later, they were telling us that they were instructed not to clean up the curbs. That made absolutely no sense to me because I knew I had swept the curbs off down into the gutter. That's the problem. My terminology was gutter, not curbs. And it further explained to me that they normally go by and pick up the large piles first, and then they come along and clean up the curbs. Well, my curb was clean. I wanted my gutter cleaned. So terminology is one problem. The second problem that I see and could be easily corrected, they said that they normally make 2 swipes around the streets each year. There is no advertisement of that in the notice that they're going to pick up leaves. We know what day they're supposed to pick up leaves on your street or in your area. So you bust your butt to get all your leaves out there and ready for them, and then they don't pick them up. So if you're going to have 2 pickup times, I would suggest whenever you publish your pickup days, you also publish that there will be a second pickup time and an approximate time when it'll be done. And I think that would solve at least solve my confusion and my neighbor's confusion. So, thank you, Earl, and thank you, Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Brantley, I believe you had your hand up.
Good evening. My name is Jane Brantley. I'm here tonight to invite the Commission and the community to the Sounding Joy Women's Choir and Resonance Men's Choir Holiday Concert this Friday, December 15th at 7:30 p.m. at the Presbyterian Church on Main Street. These choirs are conducted by Dr. Barbara Hall, and it's going to be a wonderful evening of entertainment and music. The admission is free, but we will be accepting donations for the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention, or ASAP, directed by Kathy Miles. So we would love for everyone to come out at 7:30 and enjoy the concert and to support the work of ASAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Reverend Jenkins, you'll take the microphone, please, sir.
Well, before I get up there, it said that a question that was on the agenda. I have a question for the commissioners about what was on the agenda.
Take the microphone, please.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
William Jenkins. The question that I have is concerning the water treatment and the changing of the meters. Why would you change the meters out in January when it's the coldest part of the year and everything freezes up? Water does anyway. And would that not be a better time in the spring? Just a question.
Since Anthony has
It
left.
says January the 8th.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why would you? Well, Earl's over there.
It's going to take through the year, realistically. They've projected that they hope to be done by September, but they're going to have to work, regardless of when they started, they would have ended up working through winter months to get them all changed. Otherwise, there would have been a big gap between starting, and then they would have had to remobilize. They would have had to leave town and then come back to do it again in the summer. So it's their desire, really, to go ahead and work through the winter and or let me rephrase that, to work continuously. So in doing that, they're gonna work through a winter, no matter when they start. So they just decided to go ahead and get started as it became available to them.
Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Do they work weather permitting? I mean, if it's really nasty weather and really, really cold, are they still going to be out there?
They say they will, and so the work that they will be doing is difficult, and it's difficult whenever they do it. But
It's never
from
really
our
a good
personal
time.
experience dealing with issues like that, winter months are worse. Water does freeze, not necessarily in the house, but water freezes around what they're trying to do, and it's going to be challenging work when they're trying to do it, no doubt.
I think Commissioner Terry should go around and make sure they're working every day.
You can do that. I
leave
that to the senior commissioner.
Is there anyone else in the public that would like to have a say about anything?
That's a very good question, though.
Going once, going twice. We will move into commissioner comments. Mr. Atkins, would you like to begin? Okay. Commissioner Terry?
Can't think of anyone. Just Merry Christmas.
I had the pleasure of attending the Kentucky School for the Deaf banquet this Thursday, in which they hosted the president of Gallaudet University, Mrs. Cordano, and I didn't catch her first name, but this lady of about 5'3", well, she can move a mountain, and I got an education in brain physiology and how infants learn, and it was quite impressive, and it just brings to mind that we have an untapped resource in our community, and that is the deaf community, and we need to continue to focus on putting the light on that community, because Kentucky School for the Deaf does not get anywhere near the funding that it's necessary. Nowhere near. 98% of the dollars that are allocated from the state are used for administration and physical plant. 98%. That doesn't leave a whole lot left for the kids. Secondly, on KSD's campus is Jacobs Hall. Yesterday, the Boyle Landmark Trust had their annual meeting. I encourage every citizen to take some time and go see Jacobs Hall this Christmas. It is stunning. It is just beautiful inside, and they've done a fantastic job. And while you're at it, you'll get into the history of KSD, and that's an important part, because that building itself celebrates this year 160 years. 160 years that building has been standing, and it is still magnificent to this day. While I'm talking about Kentucky School for the Deaf, in 2023, I believe I'm correct, that is the 200-year celebration of deaf education in America. The local deaf community is going to make a push to have that celebration, which would be a nationwide celebration of numerous deaf communities and institutions in the United States, to have that here in Danville, Kentucky. And it's my hope that we will assist them in every way possible. A great way to bring the spotlight again on not only our community, but KSD personnel and KSD facilities.
You said 2023?
2023.
You get to do all the fun stuff.
I'll see that you get some of them at night.
I'm talking about the congratulations to KSD for reopening their pool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big.
That's what I-
That was very much a community effort.
Yeah.
Opened up and went back down. Yeah.
I was just going to mention, several of us went to a program that the Bluegrass ad put on about the opioid crisis in
Yeah.
Kentucky and in the U.S. really, and there's a lot of good information shared, and you know, one of the big things I came out with is what I thought going in is, you know, we need to remove the stigma of the addict and provide more treatment options, and that's one of several ways that we have to attack this to try to get ahead of it. But it was I thought, a very good program.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to ask real quick. We all also attended the day before that on Thursday, the Bridges Out of Poverty. So were you able to connect those?
Yeah.
Was there correlation?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there's a correlation. Yeah.
I
Not
didn't-
always. I mean,
yeah.
addiction affects all walks of life, but
Right, but
there definitely is a significant, maybe more of an issue.
because we didn't talk about drugs on Thursday really,
We didn't.
and I didn't get to go to the drug thing, so I just wondered how that tied in and if
And they
it did.
didn't, I guess, specifically mention it then.
Well, but
It's sort of an underlying,
yeah, both days the word poverty was mentioned.
yes.
And so that was the connector for me. And the other thing that I got from it is that we have got to stop in this community, well, the country really too, that when things just affect poor people, they're okay. When they get to affect middle class and upper class, then they're not okay. And that's the message that I got from both days, that we got to stop letting these things go on with folks who are at risk until they get into our neighborhoods and into our families. And then we get.
Very true.
That was good. There was 2 days worth.
This being our last regular scheduled meeting of the year, I guess it's time, and I appreciate City Manager Ron Scott for taking care of some of my business here in terms of compliments, so that'll make it a little bit shorter. That's good, huh? I'm pretty happy with what we've been seeing out of Planning and Zoning, Develop Danville, and Convention Visitors Bureau in the heart of Danville, and Parks and Rec. I think we've seen some movement this year that's going to carry over to 2018. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But in that light, I also want to say with a heartfelt goodbye to Paula Fowler, our current Chamber of Commerce Director. We're going to miss her. She needs to move on, take care of her family in North Carolina, her mother and father in particular. So all we can say is we look forward to her replacement and hope he or she is a good fit for our team. But so far we're looking good there on that. So didn't want to forget her. And then I also want to make a mention, and I appreciate you bringing up the opioid thing. There's some things happening. We have a relatively 2-year-old new, if I can say that, committee in this town called Safe Communities. And I've been a member of that, as has Ron Scott and Chief Flug. And we just went through an accreditation process nationally. We don't have the results of it yet, but I think it went very well. This will be position us to be recognized as someone that is trying to make sure that our community is safe, and I think we always have, but it also, in being recognized nationally, kind of puts us in a position to get grant money when we have projects that are challenging to fund. So United Way, Heart of Kentucky United Way, was the one that is the leader on this, and Ephraim McDowell has been a big player in this, as has the city and most of our first responders. So I think they were impressed with their visit here, and we got some good comments back from that. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you.
And I feel they need to backtrack a little bit and explain to the public what we did this past Thursday. I think everyone needs to understand that this commission took, as well as staff, took 4 hours out of their afternoon Thursday to attend a program called Bridges Out of Poverty. This is administered, or should I say taught. It's a program taught through the United Way. And it is an eye-opening experience, and it talks about the cycle of poverty and how poverty becomes a pattern, and the key is trying to break that pattern. And for all of us in that room, in this room, that is kind of an eye-opening experience for us. So I do want to thank the commission for that, because this commission is very interested in economic development, and that is a very broad term. And certainly, there's a scriptural issue that says, you take care of the lowest common denominator, and everybody else is taken care of with that. So again, I want to thank the commission. And I think it's indicative of this commission and its focus.
Yeah, along with that, I appreciate you bringing that up. Everyone up here has attended that seminar, so we're totally 100% vested in trying to make things better.
And encourage anybody in the public to reach out to Amy Longwell at the United Way, Heart of Kentucky United Way, and she'll be glad to enroll you in a class. It's well worth your time.
So adding to that, just real quickly, I think we as a commission need to decide what we're going to do with that information. And possibly we could sit down with our thoughts and what we took away from that, maybe after the first of the year? I know it's, I've been turning it over in my mind, and I have my perspective, and I would like to hear yours at some point, so.
Okay. We'll find a time to do that. All right, we are in item 13, payment of the bills. Nope, we moved 16 up to.
Yeah, that's right.
So item 13, payment of the bills. Do I hear a motion to accept the payment of the bills as presented?
I offer a motion to pay the bill list dated December 12th, 2017, in the amount of $594,879.01.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. How about a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. We're in discussion.
Cottle
Any-
pitched in the penny, didn't you?
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 14 is Resolution 2017-12-11-03. This is the Kentucky League of Cities Grant Award Acceptance. I believe it's in the amount of $3,000. Ms. Peak, you want to elaborate?
No, we just ask that you approve the acceptance of the grant.
Okay.
Offer a motion, approve resolution 2017-12-1103 as presented.
Thanks, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Saris. Any discussion?
No, might just point out it's a $3,000 non-matching grant, correct?
Yep.
We match it with up to 6,000, so he's doing a sidewalk project.
Oh, I'm
with
sorry.
it, but
Okay. That is $3,000.
$3,000.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 15 is Resolution 2017-12-11-04. This is the street acceptance of Kendall Drive. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you. Other than the resolution, I don't necessarily have a lot of comments, unless you all have questions.
Do I hear a motion to accept?
I move to
resolution.
accept the resolution 2017-12-11-04.
Thanks, Commissioner Terry. How about a second?
Second.
Thanks, Commissioner Cottle. Discussion?
This is just means that Kendall Drive is now a city-maintained street, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it just the street, or does it include lighting or anything?
It's the normal street components.
Okay. That is McDowell Estates, correct?
That is correct.
Correct. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 16 is Resolution 2017-12-11-05. This is the Corporate Drive Waterline Easement. Mr. Coffey, what would you add?
Little, unless you all have a need for information. Additional information. Resolution and exhibit speaks for themselves. It's the addition of a waterline easement on the property identified along Perryville Road. In the easement will be the location or the termination of the eventual Corporate Drive waterline project for this phase.
Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of Resolution 2017-12-11-05.
Thanks, Commissioner Cottle. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Discussion?
There was no consideration on this, Earl?
No, sir. Mm-mm.
Any further
those folks.
discussion? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 17 will be the fire training audit report.
Yes, sir.
Chief Flute.
Thank you. Just a little background before I go on. The Kentucky Fire Commission sets the fire department standards on training and organization, and they also pay an incentive for every certified firefighter. And part of the certification is mandatory trainings. And this year, the commission audited the city of Danville's fire department on all their trainings for a 2-year period. And the areas that they covered were training records, training materials, equipment, apparatus, employee status, and incentive distribution. and it covered the periods of 2016 and current 2017. And during the audit, the auditor randomly chose 3 full-time firefighters, 4 part-time firefighters, and then randomly going through the thousands of records, checked the accuracy between our written records and their online database. And the auditor found in all areas we met the standard set before by the commission, and remarked that our records were among the best kept in the state. And we were I was very pleased with that result.
Absolutely.
As you should be.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is that it?
I believe that's it, unless we,
We have a request for an executive session to deal with personnel matters.
And I'm gonna make the motion.
You are?
You are?
City Attorney Dexter. How would we go into executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61.81011?
Good thing I was sitting
Excuse me,
down, but I'll.
that's F.
Is that an F?
F.
One F, all right.
Thank you.
Good
I'm not
thing I
used
was
to doing that.
we have a motion, do I hear
But that
a
was
second?
mighty
I'll
good.
second that.
And a second.
Glad I was
Any
sitting down.
discussion, all in favor of the motion of going into executive session, say aye.
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 Opposed, like
No, I
sign.
gotta do it, James.
I'm knowing.
We're in executive session. Do I hear a motion, we move back into regular session?
So move.
Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are in regular session. Madam Clerk.
Staff would ask that you hire Keisha Justice and Mr. Greenwell to the position of Public Works Maintenance Operators in Public Works Department with the usual probationary measures.
Do I
So
hear a
moved.
motion
Second.
made by Commissioner Cardle, second by Commissioner Terry. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Continue.
We would also ask that you hire Daniel Adams to the position of Sewer Rehab Maintenance Worker with the usual probationary measures.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner
Second.
Terry, second by Commissioner Sears. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Any further business to come before this commission? Seeing
Offer
none.
motion to
See ya.
adjourn.
Motion made to adjourn. All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Tell Michelle it was.